our Richmond Bureau of Criminal Investigation Field Office. We appreciate you joining us. We realize that you had kind of a short notice to get here, so we thank you for doing that. I want to begin by introducing just a couple of people that are with me. First of all, the Honorable Marla Decker, the Secretary of Public Safety, and the Director of our Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Lieutenant Colonel C. Davis. Appreciate you being here. We have the Commonwealth Attorney for Caroline County Police Officer. We have Gene Lepling from VCU. Gene, thank you for being here. And some others I'll introduce as we go along with our remarks. You know, you find here in Virginia your state police force standing behind podiums like this regularly asking for the help of our citizens on solving violent crimes. Just last year, we added another 84 violent crimes to our list of cases that we're working across the state. But today we come to you with what I guess can be best described as an opportunity for closure and a hopeful conclusion to a nightmare that a New Jersey couple has suffered with since their daughter disappeared maybe 15 years ago. Their daughter was Lisa Kathy Gudinski, 31 years old, married, mother of two, an honors graduate at VCU. She was an aspiring officer with the Army National Guard. She was a young woman that was trying to improve her status in life when she was brutally murdered by her husband, Lawrence Gudinski. She was murdered on January 26, 1995 in her home in Caroline County. Now, what I'm about to share with you is very complex, and it's an extensive description of a series of events that would lead us to today. And I apologize for the length, but I think it's important that you hear this detail so that you fully understand. This case really exemplifies the tenacity and the skill that it takes to solve a crime of this nature. It also demonstrates the professional and the personal investment of the investigators and the prosecutors in this particular case. You can ask several of these people here, most notably the three folks that served at some point in time over the last 15 years as the case agents on this particular case. We have with us retired Senior Special Agent Dave Riley. We have with us Senior Special Agent C.J. Fisher. And we have Special Agent Doc Lyons, all of whom at some point in time in the last 15 years were the primary case agents on this case. Even though this case has been assigned to three different investigators over the years, it was never passed off, it was never passed over, it was always passed on, and then it was relentlessly pursued. It all started in 1997 when the state police was asked to take over the investigation, which had really begun 2 years earlier as a missing persons case. Lisa was supposed to have arrived at Fort Lee on January the 26th, 1995 to begin officers training. That day, her husband Lawrence said that he drove her from their Caroline County residence to the bus station in Richmond. From there, she was to take a bus to Fort Lee. However, investigators determined that there was no bus route assigned from Richmond to Fort Lee on that particular day. And that's just one of the multiple stories and fabrications that Lawrence made up over the next few years to cover his tracks. Lawrence reported his wife missing 5 days later, 5 days after she had reportedly gone to Fort Lee. Despite investigations by the Caroline County Sheriff's Office and a private investigator that was hired by Lisa's parents, there were no leads that were developed that helped to determine the whereabouts, and the case went dormant. In February of 1997, the Sheriff's Office relinquished the case to the state police, and it was assigned to the Senior Special Agent Riley. Now, as soon as the case was handed over to us, Lawrence Gudinski disappeared. He disappeared along with his infant daughter. Now, Special Agent Riley had three individuals to attempt to locate. So he thoroughly reviewed the case. He reviewed the prior and existing leads, he re-interviewed witnesses, and he established a timeline of events. Even though Lawrence was gone from the area, a lot of the people that we contacted for information were still too scared to talk about the case. Many of these folks, years later, would reveal information that was essential to prove our case. Senior Special Agent Riley continued working on this particular case as a primary agent until his retirement in 2004. Then the case was reassigned to Senior Special Agent C.J. Fisher. About that same time, Gene Lepley, in his responsibility at Channel 12, developed a new feature. And as part and parcel of this, he contacted state police to see if there were any cold cases that we would like to share and he could use in this new series. The Lisa Gadenzi case was the very first story that Gene featured. Now, I'll pause for just a second. I know that you get tired of law enforcement saying to you again and again and again that it just takes that one tip from the public to break a case. Well, we say that over and over again because it's absolutely true. Sure enough, someone saw the Channel 12 piece and they recognized Lawrence. So based on this one viewer's tip, Special Agent Fisher found Lawrence working at a discount retailer in Harrisonburg, except he wasn't Lawrence Gadenzi anymore. Now he was Randy Evans, and he had gone so far as to change his daughter's first and last name as well. So you ask, who was Randy Evans? Well, it turns out Mr. Evans was a homeless person that lived in Richmond near the garage where Lawrence used to work. Randy Evans, to this day, has not been seen or heard from since 1998. So Special Agent Fisher was now investigating 2 potential homicides involving Lawrence Gadenzi. The one shining moment for finally finding Lawrence was an opportunity to reunite Lisa's parents with Lisa's young daughter. They hadn't seen the little girl since Lawrence had disappeared 7 years prior to that. Now, even though Special Agent Fisher found Lawrence, this time he hadn't found a body to prove that Lisa had been murdered, and Lawrence wasn't giving up very much information at that particular point in time. He was charged with forgery and ultimately convicted of perjury. But Special Agent Fisher kept tabs on Lawrence and continued to pursue his acquaintances in hope of finding new information that would eventually lead to Lisa. Then Special Agent Fisher was transferred to another unit within the department. In 2008, the case was reassigned to Special Agent Lyons. Now it's 13 years later, and Special Agent Lyons goes about the job of acquainting himself with all the original witnesses in a particular case. He worked to get to know the individuals, and with assistance from some of the other agents here at the field office, they began to develop new information. Individuals felt a little safer coming forward now than they did before. And Special Agent Lyons began locating new witnesses that could help piece together pieces of information in the case. New searches were conducted of the former Gadenzi residence in Caroline County. And also significant to this case was the assistance and the commitment that helped us to advance the case was the work of the Commonwealth's attorney in Caroline County, Tony Spencer. Despite not having a body and only having limited forensic evidence, Tony agreed to accept the case and take it to trial. On May 16, 2008, Special Agent Lyons arrested Lawrence Gadenzi, charging him with the 1995 murder of Lisa. It went to trial in Caroline County on May the 5th of last year, and those of you that covered that case may remember that 3 days into the trial, Lawrence Gadenzi confessed to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. And he's now serving that sentence in the Augusta Correctional Unit in Augusta County. But for the state police and Special Agent Lyons, the case was not over yet because he still hadn't found Lisa's body, nor had he determined what had happened with Randy Evans. So for the past year, Special Agent Lyons has kept in touch with Lawrence Gadenzi, and he's been trying to convince him to give up the location where he had hid Lisa's body many years ago. And finally, last Wednesday, Lawrence did. The Virginia Department of Corrections transported to Caroline County, and Lawrence led a team of investigators to a remote field just across the line in Spotsylvania County. Roughly 6 miles off US Route 1 off of Massaponax Church Road was the very location where Lisa's body had been left more than 15 years ago. It turns out that after killing Lisa in their home in Caroline County, Lawrence wrapped her in a sleeping bag. He then put the sleeping bag in a 40-gallon metal drum and poured in masonry cleaning acid. The property there where the remains were found has been clear-cut. It was clear-cut about a year ago, reseeded, and investigators last week weren't able to find the drum, but they did find the remnants of the sleeping bag and several empty plastic bottles of muriatic acid. A cadaver dog was called in from Louisa County and helped to search for remains. The dog alerted on the very spot where the sleeping bag was found, and investigators immediately began digging and sifting through the soil. 5 hours later, Special Agent T.C. Collins had in his hand a porcelain dental bridge that turned out to be the only remains that were found. On Thursday, this bridge was taken to the office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Richmond, and within 10 minutes they were able to confirm through dental records that this was in fact the very dental bridge that was worn by Lisa Cadenzi. On Friday, Special Agent Lyons and Special Agent Collins traveled to New Jersey to meet with Lisa's parents and to let them know that she'd finally been found. Meanwhile, Lawrence was returned to his prison cell in Augusta County, and he will continue to get calls and get visits from Special Agent Lyons, who's now working on finding out what happened to Randy Evans. At this time, I would like to invite Dr. Lyons up to the podium to share his perspective on this case.
Thank you, Colonel. Well, as the Colonel has talked, this has been an ongoing case for the Virginia State Bureau of Criminal Investigation. I acquired the case after, as the Colonel had spoken previously, Dave Riley's retirement and C.J. Fisher's transfer. I was fortunate that when I took the case, about that time, we had 3 new agents that came on board upstairs. We decided that we would work this thing as a team, which we did. We acquired a lot of new witnesses, some as far away as Kuwait. We talked with Tony Spencer, there. Tony offered us all the assistance that his office could provide us. We went before a grand jury, got an indictment, and eventually arrested Lawrence in Harrisonburg. The trial was sort of anticlimactic to the family. They were certainly glad that Lawrence Cadenzi had been convicted of this crime and that he was going to be pulling the best part of his life in prison. One thing that kept nagging the family and kept nagging all of us is that we just didn't feel like that this case would be complete without at least finding where Lisa's body was. After, with some prior contacts to Lawrence Cadenzi, he started realizing that he's never going to get out of prison, so he wanted to play let's make a deal. So we went along with that premise. He did take us up there. I think the most gratifying part of this case to us was that not only the conviction of Lawrence Cadenzi was that we were able to talk with the family and tell them exactly what happened as far as we knew it. T.C. Collins and I met with them this weekend. I don't know whether they feel like that they have closure or not. I've never had a family member murdered, so I don't know how you put closure on something like this, but we have done the best we could to provide them at least we know where the resting place of their daughter is. The case against Lawrence, as far as Randy Evans goes, is still an ongoing criminal investigation. We're working on that, and hopefully within the near future we'll be able to get everybody together again and say, hey, we've convicted convicted Lawrence of this case.
Appreciate the team effort that you led at coming down the final leg of this particular case, and thanks to the many investigators that worked on it, many of them that are here with you. I mentioned just how key to the case that the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in Caroline was, and I'd like to have Tony Spencer.
Thank you, Colonel. As a prosecutor, when you put a case together, I like to look at it as you're presenting a puzzle to the jury, and you have pieces of the puzzle that you put together and creates a picture of the defendant's guilt. Some are puzzles with only a few pieces, some are puzzles with 1,000 pieces. This was a 1,000-piece puzzle. And one of the things that I think is remarkable about this case is the state police never gave up. They, as you've heard, Dave Riley had the case at first, C.J. Fisher, then Doc Lyons. I remember when we first started talking about this case, we had a meeting in my office, and it was Doc Lyons, T.C. Collins, Tony Chrisley, Mike Jenkins, and Tom Goodpasture. And the five of them said, okay, here's what we're going to do. They fanned out, they went all around the country, and they developed evidence in addition to what had already been developed. There were two, in particular, two key pieces of information that were developed during that time, and this really is a testament to the tenacity of the state police. They never gave up on this case, and I just want to thank them for the great job they did.
We appreciate your commitment as well. Thank you so very much. Before I close the press conference and give you an opportunity to ask some questions, I want to thank the Spotsylvania County Sheriff's Office that helped us with the search, as well as the Department of Forestry. We had help from Sharon Jones with Dogs East up there at the scene, and we appreciate that. And you know, despite the age of the case and the considerable obstacles that were encountered along the way, the special agents that worked on this case, when they were assigned to the Richmond Field Office, they never did give up. They were totally committed not only to bringing a murderer to justice, but to also trying to bring much needed and much deserved closure to the families as much as possible in this type of situation. And you know, as rewarding as closing this chapter on this case may be for us, there are a lot of other cases out there that we continue to work on, and we continue to work on just as hard as this one was worked on. And I will say to all of those families out there that are victims of other cases that we had to close at this particular point in time, we pledge to you that we will continue to work just as hard, and the agents that are working those cases across the state, those cases mean just as much to them as this case did to Dave and CJ and Doc and the others that worked on it. And we pledge to you that we will continue to work on those until we bring them to a closure as well. So again, I thank you all for being here today. In your packets, you have a press release that contains most all the information that I reviewed with you, but we'd be happy to try and take some questions at this point.
Can one of the case agents just talk a little bit about the family's reaction when you visited them last week in New Jersey? What was their reaction to, after so many years, hearing that what unfolded?
Well, their reaction was, I think it was a mixed reaction. It was one of relief that we had found the resting place, but again, we were not able to provide them with anything other than a piece of bridge work out of the mouth. Their reaction was that I believe that they felt that we would eventually find something. We explained to them that we wished we had more to offer, but that was it. They were accepting. They accepted that, and as probably the final chapter in the closure of this case.
Okay, can you discuss Lawrence's mood as you guys, as he took you through the field, stuff like that? Can you describe him?
Lawrence Waldenzi, in my opinion, is a consummate actor. well in the movies. His emotions would range from whatever he felt was appropriate. He was, at first, when we first got there, we weren't sure, and he says that he wasn't sure that we were in the right place. The more evidence we found, the more convinced he was that he was there. It's hard for me to describe him. He's one of a kind.
Along with that
Sir,
question, did he ever?
Was there a cause of death ever determined or a motive?
No, the cause of death was just homicidal. It was homicidal in nature. We do not have enough to, since we have no body, we really can't determine a cause of death. It was, according to him, it was an accident that she fell and all of this sort of stuff. She broke her neck. We were never able to prove or disprove that. The medical examiner has classified the manner of death as homicide just by violent means.
In exchange for showing you the site and where he left the body, is Mr. Gadenzi receiving any kind of consideration?
Absolutely none.
Any idea when, after all this time, he decided to come forward with this information?
Again, he's a consummate actor. He wanted to play Let's Make a Deal. He felt like that if he brought us to the body, that he would be able to use that as leverage or as a means to get the Commonwealth attorney to reduce the amount of time that he has served, or the amount of time that he has to serve. Even if this had been a consideration, which it was not, we did not find anything that would prove his side of the story.
Mr. Lance, a couple of years ago, there was a similar situation where I think Barry Kazee arranged for a guy in state prison, Cole Clazier, to show him where the body was of a sheriff's brother in Craig County along Interstate 81. Ended up, he planted a gun there, had somebody plant a gun there. Did state police, probably knowledgeable of that situation still, did you all take special precautions to somehow assure yourselves that this gentleman had not been working with someone else to ambush you guys?
Yes, sir, we did. Once we, Department of Corrections gave him no notification that he was going to be moved. They just came down one afternoon and said, get your stuff, you're going. During the entire time that he was, from the time that he left the prison until the time that he was placed in the other holding facility, all of his phone calls and this sort of stuff were being monitored by Corrections, and Corrections immediately would contact one of us with basically what they had heard over the telephone. That we had enough people there that we felt like that he was not going to be an escape risk, that he was not going to be a risk to us as far as leaving a weapon or anything like that. The whole time that he was there, he was manacled and he was handcuffed, and his amount of movement was carefully monitored by Corrections.
Have investigators been able to determine why, after 15 years of body soaked in acid, when you went to the site, there was no drum, no body, but a sleeping bag?
Well, that's a puzzler. We don't know whether, you have to realize that the information that we got, we're getting this information from a killer who has nothing to gain, who has nothing to lose. So whether he told us, after 15 years, whether he took the body out of the sleeping bag before we put it into the barrel, whether he used the sleeping bag to transport it, we're not sure at this point of what the actual sequence was. But we after we had done our search, we talked about the same thing. TC and I, on the way up to New Jersey, were talking about, well, if he used acid in this thing, why do we have parts of the sleeping bag? It could be that the body was taken out of the sleeping bag once he got up there, and he put her in this drum with the the plan to use the acid to dispose of any evidence of the body. I can't answer that, I wish I could. Now, you have to realize that this was not an intact sleeping bag. There were remnants scattered over probably a 5-acre or more field. The place that we concentrated our search was the area where the largest mass of the sleeping bag was located, but it was scattered everywhere.
And how far away is this from their home where he says she was murdered?
30 miles, and that's a guess. That's a guess. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, again, we appreciate you being here, and that concludes the press conference.